Tetra Tech set us up. Now we know the game is up. Tetra Tech.
Something is wrong here.
Everything in gray is radiation impacted or contaminated.
It is a struggle against racism and injustice and discrimination.
We take no pleasure in being vindicated because our worst fears have been realized.
And we never say surrender.
My name is Reza Shirazi. I am architect and urban planner by education, but I have done some research around neighborhood development, community development, social sustainability issues, and recently I have also focused more on around urban justice and environmental justice issues. I am very pleased that I was able to produce something that the community members see themselves in it. You know, their struggles, their emotions, their feelings. It's located in Bayview Hunters Point neighborhood, and it is about Hunters Point shipyard. And the shipyard was in operation during the Second World War until the 70s. The land was very much contaminated and partly also radioactively contaminated. From 1990s, the Navy came to an agreement with the city that the Navy cleans the land and give it to the city, and the city develops it and makes a big development. They call it the biggest development project in San Francisco, which is rightly so. They are going to build around 12,000 houses, condos, and residential units there, and next to office buildings, hotels, shopping malls, and all these things. From the beginning, they divided the land to different parcels because of the nature and type of contamination. There was also parcel A, which used to be an office space, basically, and the argument was that it is clean because there were no activities there, military activities there. And they started from 2014, they started to construct this parcel A. And now they have more than 400 condos built there. But what happened to the rest is that in 2017, they realized that the cleanup work that had been conducted there was suspect, and they have been fraud there. My film is about the community fight and struggle just to prove themselves that they have legitimate concerns about over the years, and they were worried about the safety of the land. And they finally proved that they were right, and there were really big issues there on the ground.
Please tell me how the community organized.
In Bayview Hunters Point, there have been a long tradition of community organization in Bayview Hunters Point, because if you look at the history, for example, in 1960s, 1970s, there was also, interestingly, leading by women, by female, and they were fighting for housing in that time. And they were very active. So because of this tradition of having community activism, so they were very, very good in the way that they organized themselves. There were different NGOs, or what they call it, non-profit organizations, and they did different activities. Sometimes they came together and tried to make a joint activity, for example, like protests and this kind of thing. Or if there were different hearings, in town hall hearings, they were normally informing each other and going and making comments and making protests, raising their voice and this kind of stuff. So they were very good in mobilizing themselves, basically. The community activism started right from the beginning, that the city started to develop the land. Again, the community members were not 100% sure that everything is conducted properly. But as soon as the people moved to this newly constructed buildings, it was the time that also this story of the fraud came to the public. And they realized that, look, we are living just next to the contaminated land, and they get scared, and they started demanding more clear evidence that their land is also clean, and also started suing the company and also the developer for not informing them. You see in my film that this lady, pregnant lady, comes saying that, okay, this is the first time I am hearing about this, and I am pregnant, I'm having a child, and so just imagine that out of sudden you hear that your house could be potentially built on a contaminated land. What feeling you will get? So they were really very disappointed, very concerned, and they have sold us the false dream, basically. From the beginning, when you go into the history of this area, this neighborhood, it was a forgotten land because it is a little bit disconnected to the central San Francisco. The health profile of the community is very low. For example, if you look at the statistics, the asthma level is very, very high in this community. Breast cancer with women is very high. The level of hospitalization is very, very high. Community members start associating the problems that they have, for example, the asthma and other the types of cancer, to the contamination of the land, and they say that the origin of the problems and diseases that we have is the contamination that already exists in this site.
What was the authorities' position regarding the correlation between the contamination levels in the soil and the diseases of the community?
Yes, they have always made this argument and this basically comes from the Department of Public Health and the San Francisco Department of Public Health. And they just saying that there is no scientific evidence. They accept that there are problems there, but they say that it is not necessarily related to the situation in the shipyard. There is no scientific evidence and there is no correlation between them. And the community members believe that there is correlation between them, and they deny it. Like many other alarms that come from the community members, these are also totally or partially ignored and not acknowledged. You know, the San Francisco is one of the most expensive cities. I believe it is the first, or if not the first, the second most expensive city. And the land is very valuable, but the city is also very dense, and they have also very limited land available. And they need every spot that is empty to build, to provide more houses. I have looked at the position of authorities, local authorities and politicians over the years, just starting from 1990s, how they looked at this case. You know, from the beginning, the argument was that the local authorities were pro-development. And what was the attitudes towards the community members who were protesting? It was a kind of very much ignoring them. So there was a kind of one voice coming from the city saying that everything is fine, everything is good, everything is clean. Don't worry. We are monitoring everything. We are watching everything. The Navy, other regulatory agencies have everything under control. Don't be worried. Every single voice that came from the community was basically ignored or overlooked.
Tell me, please, what is the situation right now in the community?
The community, they are still fighting for their rights. The construction has been slowed down there, and the cleanup process has also slowed down, but they are watching everything and they act if needed. From end of 2017 and early 2018, which the fraud really was confirmed by the authorities, we also see a change of attitudes, and they try to blame different entities. For example, blaming the Navy for this, or blaming the companies, or blaming the developer, or blaming the federal agencies for not properly supervising the cases. So they started blaming other cases, but they showed a kind of sympathy in that case, at least on the surface. So on the public, they try to be more pro-community and showing that they listen to their voices. But this is a political play, political trick. So if they were listening to the community right from the beginning years ago, they would also do these things differently. There is an absolute lack of trust or absolute distrust between community and the city and all other authorities. It's understandable because when you are ignored for years, for decades, and then there is no trust, and So they really don't believe into the authorities. Whatever they do, whatever they say, whatever argument they make, whatever their narrative is, so they really don't believe them.
What do you think will happen in the future?
Okay, this is an interesting one. I can say with high certainty that the development will be very, very slow. It will take ages to clean the land and also get official approval that the land is clean. And then start developing it. It will take probably more than 10 years, even 20 years. And there have been always delays, and it's going to happen again and again. So it's going to be a challenge for 1 or 2 decades more.
Tell me, how can we help you and the community in this problem?
You know, so this is an interesting one. What I was thinking is that, you know, it is the first time in Romania, and also first time in Cluj. And I just arrived on Friday, and I also went to site visit in Patarit. And I have read about it, or already read about it for a couple of months before. But really, I see a lot of similarities between the cases. You know, basically, what you see in Bayview Hunters Point is an environmental justice case, and what we are seeing in Patarit is also environmental justice case. And there are similar stories about the way that authorities are ignoring them, are overlooking them, and also the good side of it, the community activism, how the community and others try to organize themselves and make protests. And so I hope that in future we have more chance to more exchange of knowledge in these cases. And this is one of the things that I am here, because I really want to work on in the future, work on more cases from different areas, and to build up a network of similar cases. And we have to let's see what happens.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.